You having trouble with the sound? Okay. Well, hello. It looks like Josh, we have an issue with the intro music.
Yeah, couldn't find it for a second.
Oh, okay, it's all right. This is our buddy Josh, who's pinch hitting for Taylor, and there's a lot to learn. And Taylor goes out of town. Look at what happens. He just throws you in the deep end of the pool, doesn't he?
Yeah, no joke.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. You're doing a good job. You really are, because it's a tough job to do. I don't even, Mr. Cooper here will agree. Technology is a bit above our pay grade, isn't it?
It's it's the thorn in my side and my biggest roadblock right now.
Well,
for sure.
Anyway, we're on the line. We're with Greg Cooper, who many of y'all know because he's had his own show, and we're going to talk about what his future plans are because he has some ideas, and also we're going to let him demonstrate what his show is about. We're going to talk about property taxes, which is something that I pay but know very little about. But Mr. Cooper here is much more of an expert than I am. And so if you have questions, put them on the screen and whatnot. I'm going to talk about what his show is about, what he likes to talk about, his background, etc. Also, he's going to give us every detail of his financial information and what makes him cry at night and whatever else. No, this is Oprah, right? No, we're not going to do that, dadgummit. But anyway, before we jump into all of this, let's talk about our sponsors to make all this happen. I bet you know some of these guys because everybody knows these guys. First of all, thank you to Otto at Our Place. I bet you've been there before.
Absolutely. A couple different Our Places.
Yeah, right. Which one? The Cleveland one?
Been to both.
I haven't been to the Cleveland one yet. I've been to the one in Mansfield once, but I always go to one here down because it's right there and all that. And the food is great. The service is great. It's very relaxed. I really enjoy that place. It's not like a high pressure diner or whatever. It's not loud or whatnot. Also Gina's. Have you been to Gina's Pizza yet?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've been there several times. I really do like their baked ziti. I know they're pushing that, so I tried it and I really do like it a lot. It's very good. Also, here I am taking my time here to share with the various groups. This is always a source of amusement for Taylor because I'm like, hey, where is this group? Anyway, I'm doing it. You could share with your friends, I hope. One more.
Link it to me so I can share it. Where do I share it from?
That's a good question. I could do it on the fly here. I don't. Anyway, I'll be on Municipal Matters page soon.
All right.
You can share it from there. Also, Wild Cigar and Culture. You a cigar smoker?
I used to be a cigar smoker. So I had an injury from the military. I have a paralyzed diaphragm, so I need to be careful about what goes in and out of a pressure-based system. So I got to be a little careful with that.
But anyway,
I used to be a fan. Oliveros were my favorite.
It's their favorite too. I mean, they sell a bunch of those. I mean, when I first got to know them, one of the owners is a former student of mine, Chris Notaboom, and I got to know their outfit and their business. They have this huge humidor, and they're like. It's like wine. There's various tastes. There's various vintages, if you will. I mean, it was an eye-opening education about cigars, and there's a whole culture around cigars. And also it has a really nice bar. It's kind of quiet, so you don't have to yell. If you wanted to watch the afternoon golf or ball game, they got it on TV, but it's not going to be on. It's going to be on mute, so you can still talk. I really like it because I've gone there in the mid-afternoon, and you'd think it'd be really dead, but there's a lot of people that have their laptops out and do the business there, while they have a drink or a smoke or whatever. It's kind of nice.
There was many mornings coming off missions overseas that we had cigars and long conversations.
Yeah, sure. Also, Josh's mic is dead, so yeah. Anyway, I'll keep talking until you get. All Pro Roofing, John Williams, 817-734-2756. It's time to get your roof inspected. The time to do it is not when it's pouring rain. And winter is coming, like they say. Was that Game of Thrones? Yeah, winter is coming. And so you're going to want to know what your roof is, what the status is. And he'll come by and check it out real quick. He did mine about 3 weeks ago. He said, my roof's good to go. So next time it rains, which I believe will be in 2028, it's going to be, I know my roof is good to go. Okay. Did you get your sound back on?
I do.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Also, our friend Jeff Kelly at Jeff Kelly Realty. Give him a holler at 817-781-0546 or Jeff at jeffkellyrealty.com. He's with the Wethington Agency here in town, so you're dealing with local folks that have a local knowledge of the real estate industry. The rates are going up and down. I think what I've been reading, they've been going down some. So if you were concerned about that, I'd give them a call, or I'd give my friend Candy Gow a call over at Camco. She could help you with that too. And speaking of kind of an ironic segue, is tomorrow I have the Amanda Mann Clark Project on it, who does research for colorectal cancer, and Candy's daughter, Hillary Melendez, is going to be on, and she is a colorectal cancer survivor. So that's a kind of interesting little segue there. But anyway, back to the rates. If you want to know what's going on in Burleson real estate, talk to him. And he and Candy, whatever, can help you out really well. Also, the Railroaders just finished a homestand. The season's coming to an end pretty soon. It ends in Labor Day, which is, 3 weeks away. So if you want to see some good baseball, you got to better hurry, because it's going to be over with soon. There'll be the playoffs after that, and I believe our Railroaders are in contention for that.
They're in first place. Last I looked,
they were in first place. Yeah. You've had some
great
connections with baseball with that Railroads, haven't you?
I was blessed for 2 years to be able to be a part of their Hometown Hero program. They needed a little more. They had a little manpower issue the last 2 years before Rev purchased them and Mr. Junker sold them. But I was blessed to be able to identify and do some biographies and kind of take care of veterans, first responders, law enforcement, nurses, teachers, and stuff that we hosted there. It was a great thing I did for about 2 years for them.
Well, Kay Goodell's done a really good job of bringing this program, this team to the community. They have a lot of special nights. House of Hope, Next Step, Harvest House, First Responders. Several of our local community nonprofits have had special nights in their favor and their honor, and it's been a really good thing to do. She's been on the show a couple of times. She'll probably be on one more time before the season's over, and then I don't know what she'll be doing, to tell you the truth.
Well, please tell her thank you. One of the last things I was kind of able to be a part of with them is they designated the field and the stadium a Purple Heart stadium, and they put some parking signs up, and that was a big deal for the Burleson local military or the Purple Heart.
Yeah, they really do a good job, and it's good baseball. I first time I saw them 2-3 years ago, I really didn't know what to expect, and it's about AA level, and it's good baseball.
And there's not a bad seat in the house.
Not a bad seat in the house. Bring the kids. You bring your kids to it?
I do, absolutely. They got the new bounce house thing outdoors this year. It's really good. Yeah.
So if the kids get a little bored with the baseball, they go run around, and you don't have to worry about what's going to happen. Well, let's first of all, before we jump into your specialty, if you will, about taxes, property taxes, etc., tell us a little bit about your background. I know you have multiple tours of duty and things of that nature, so tell us about that. So
I'm not a native Texan. I'm originally from California. I'll just put the arrows up now. I got here as fast as I could. Bounced around in the military for a while. I was medically retired in 2015. I had 2 tours. Out of high school, I went in the Marine Corps during Gulf War I. That ended rather quickly. And then I got out and I went into law enforcement and gravitated to corrections and ended working some high security units and doing a little bit of investigations on prison gangs.
It's interesting you're in corrections in the military. Steve.
No, this was after the military.
Oh, okay.
So I was in the military 2 times. Military, law enforcement, military.
Oh, I see. Because one of our council candidates, Steve McAnally, was with the military police. I wonder if y'all ever connected or had things to talk about.
No, I haven't.
Right.
I haven't. Yeah. Okay. But I'll bring that up if we run into each other. But did law enforcement after 9/11. Went back in the military and ended up with 8 deployments, and then I was medically retired. Bounced around following my wife's career. She's in aerospace, and now we're ended up in Texas, and this is home, and this is where we are to stay. It's
God's country, ain't it?
It is, absolutely.
It really is. You'd be one of many Californians that found home here. I have a friend, 2 or 3 friends in real estate, and they say most of their businesses from people getting out of that state.
Sure.
And a lot of it has to do with something that you talk a lot about on your shows, and that is property taxes and issues. Your show is a little different than mine. I talk about, in more general terms, when I talk about politics and whatnot locally, I have people on the show and whatnot, but you grind into it. I mean, you showed us some of the stuff you do, and you really pay a lot of attention to the details. I'll put it that way. What brought this about? I mean, is this just something that has always interested you, or what?
So most of my life has been doing some form of service with, military, law enforcement, and all that. And my separation from the military, I was not able to do the physical aspect of the military anymore, based on how I was separated and what transpired leading up to that. And then me and my wife, we've been married over 30 years. We had our children really late, and I was enjoying my time. I was gone about 300 days a year. I was in a very high tempo, busy unit, so I kind of took a pause and a little break, and eventually ended up I had time. I had time, so I was able to pay attention and kind of see some of the things that were going on, and there were some things that I had some concerns about, and I began to question them, and ended up somehow wrapped up into local politics. There's an advantage and a disadvantage to moving around a lot. One is I don't have a lot of feelings that I can necessarily hurt if I touch on some of the more sensitive, tougher topics. And the downside is you just don't have a good social network to rely on. But there were some issues with some local bonds with some school districts and some curriculum stuff that really got me into it. And there was really no avenue to discuss some of the tougher topics. And everybody's talking about them. Everybody's discussing them, in their backyard barbecues or in some of their social events. But there was really no way to really wrap it all together. And in today's world, the reality is the biggest bottleneck is bandwidth. We only have so much in our time and I have been blessed with time, and I was able to begin to deep dive and really research some of the local municipality stuff, a lot of the school district stuff, especially in the finances. And then most of that leads to property taxes because that's the revenue stream that provides a lot of this. And that's basically how I got down into this road.
Well, your shows focus on these local issues a lot more.
Absolutely.
Than just a casual perusal of the documents. I mean, from what we talked about earlier and what you described your show is that you attend the meetings, you ask the questions, you have the people on if they're available, and you make the points. I mean, that this is your lane, so to speak. Because when we first got in contact with each other, I asked a couple of people, said, what's this show like? And they said, well, you're going to be talking a lot about local issues, particularly taxes. And, and they pegged you pretty good. And so, but they said this, I had no concerns, but I did know that you're going to be much more knowledgeable about the local tax situation than just about any non-official in the system, because you pay attention to it.
It's a complex
Very
system. It's a 1,000-pound gorilla in the room. I mean, it touches everything we do. A lot of people think that you have to own property to pay property taxes. Well, if businesses are paying more property taxes, they're gonna that's gonna step down to their renters. That's gonna step down to the products they sell. Everything's touched by property taxes. And the reality of it is Texas doesn't have an income tax, so a lot of that gets put on property tax. And the big issue with property taxes is you never really own your home. You're held hostage to the tax man for your home. So individuals that purchased their home in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, for example, they've most likely paid a lot more in property taxes than what they paid for the cost of their home.
I wouldn't doubt it.
And they will continue to pay more. And as when the economy's going great and everything's going good, you feel it, but it's kind of like, it's bad, but not a big deal. But, during this economic downturn, interest rates coming up, everybody's feeling it now, and people are absolutely being forced out of their homes. And it's, the goal is to look for different forms of revenue that can fund local government to where people's homes are not held hostage over their head and they're not being forced out of their homes.
As a former public school teacher, though, I see the other side of the equation, because that's how I got paid, and that's how the businesses, the schools ran.
Sure.
All this, the schools wouldn't exist without it. And I know today we have more educational options maybe than when it started, like homeschooling and private schooling and et cetera, et cetera. That's a whole other topic. But the point is that I always, when I hear people talk about wanting to eliminate the property tax, everybody's first question has to be, what would replace it?
So there's different legislations that's been proposed, and there's a lot of different options. And eliminate property tax is it's a little bit misleading. It's more of a replacement of property tax.
Okay.
While I'm not at the level of pushing the specific legislation, there's individuals throughout the state that actually have proposed bills, actually have sponsors bills. There's been actual bills go in front of the Ways and Means Committee. They usually get shot down at that point.
Did not Mr. Burns put forth one? Because he's been on the show and he was running for office. He was on the show a couple of times, and we would talk mostly about school vouchers and things like that. But he also mentioned both occasions about how he would like to eliminate the property tax. But we were already kind of deep in the weeds on the voucher issue, so I didn't really want to, and I didn't have the time. But
that's a whole nother. That's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah. But as far as
we can go down that road too, but that's a whole nother.
Maybe your next appearance. So, that's how I hook you in. Because people to talk about what they want to talk about, and said I need more time, so I'll put you on in a month.
Yeah.
What about what would replace it? You talk about there's several bills in front of the legislative bodies. A lot of people think, well, that the legislature's not in session, but no, they could put bills on any time.
So go to eliminatepropertytax.com, our Eliminate Property Tax Facebook group, and you can reach out to an individual named Russell Bennett, and he will be more than happy to provide the proposed bills. The way as you know, the way the legislative session works, it's going to start somewhere, and it's going to get altered, and it's going to have to get through committee, and it's going to go back and forth. It's going to need a companion bill. So what it ends up being, at the governor's desk, if we can get it that far, is yet to be determined. But it's more of a form of a voluntary type of tax, whether it be a consumption tax, a VAT tax. There's a lot of different mechanisms that can do it, and there's a lot of people that have a point of contention with that. But the issue is that the biggest issue is none of those force you out of your home if you don't pay them, or can't pay them.
When we put in the Constitution no state income tax, it does limit your options.
Absolutely.
And and every proposal I've heard or read about that would replace property tax deals what you described: sales tax, value-added tax, things of that nature. Wouldn't that put more of a burden upon lower income consumers, maybe?
Isn't lower income consumers have more of a burden now that they're paying higher rents because property tax keep escalating, or they're paying higher insurance on what they own? So they're already taking that hit. They're already taking that hit. The reality of it is now, because it's attached to their home, they have no choice on how to manage it.
Okay.
So you can manage it by if, for example, and here again, we're speaking very generality here. Let's assume it was a sales tax. Let's assume a sales tax replaced it. I can alter my buying habits. Instead of buying a new car every 5 years, I buy a new car every 7 years. Instead of buying name brand products, I buy off-brand products. Instead of shopping at a high-end Neiman Marcus, I shop at a Walmart or Target.
What's a Neiman Marcus? I don't Neiman Marcus.
So they're already there. So yes, it would affect them, but they're already being affected now. And the reality of it is now they have no say in it, and they're potentially forced out of their home when they can't do anything about it.
You say, instead of buying a car every 5 years, buy it every 7 years. Instead of buying this, you'll buy a cheaper version of that.
Sure.
Would that not impact state revenues?
That depends on how you look at it. You can't discuss property taxes and how they work without also looking at where the real problem is, which is the budgets. So you also have to look at the individual budgets of the municipalities and the individual budgets of the school districts, and they are probably going to need to sharpen their pencils and dot their I's and cross their T's a little sharper. There's been massive amounts of legislation come out that's give property tax relief. This is a hot topic at the legislature. They're trying to do relief, but the reality of it is people are being forced out of their homes all the time. For example, Godly ISD, their socioeconomically demographic just increased from 41% to 46%, and they're considered a growing district. They're the 20th highest taxed ISD in the state of Texas, and they're actually getting poorer by their metrics. And all of that funding is tied to the roofs over their heads, all of it. So, yes, it will affect it. But here again, it's if the budgets are overinflated, then they need to be adjusted. If you need to increase revenue from multiple ways, then that's what you need to do. It comes down to, do you want to have shelter held hostage over your head? These are taxation on unrealized gains. So, tomato, which how do you want to fund local government? And the reality of it is now is people are being forced out of their homes. It's very oppressive, and it's probably one of the biggest contentions in the state. The newly elected Republican chair, Abraham George, is tweeting about this. Governor Abbott is talking about this. So it's a big, big deal.
Well, I guess just my inclination is that when I hear politicians propose a tax idea of any kind,
Sure.
it's going to save money and it's going to cost you less, my red flags go up, because they're not going to tell you the entire story. And I just have to believe an elimination of property tax would require a great deal of adjustment, not just on the consumer, but on businesses and on states.
Sure.
And I don't know if they're telling you all of that.
Well, and I think that's why it's important that us as citizens of this great country, that we do our due diligence and research it, and we do our due diligence and we get involved. So when was the last time any of your listeners went to a city council meeting and watched a budget workshop?
There's a couple I know are there an hour before the council even shows up. If I could tell you about 3 or 4 names and they know who they are. They really do focus in on it. But you're right though. As far as the average citizen, they kind of wait to see the end result, and then evaluate it from that. I'm not disputing what you're saying. I just have questions, sir.
Sure. Well, absolutely. And so,
that's it.
If the average parent would take the amount of time that they spend at one of their children's athletic events and devote that time to understanding their municipal budgeting and their school district budgeting, and the average citizen would get as upset with irresponsible fiscal irresponsibility as they do with a drive-through order that is wrong, we might be a little bit we might have a little bit more input and ability to collaboratively solve these problems. Civic input is at catastrophic lows. Voter enthusiasm is at catastrophic lows. And so as citizens, not even being in the elected bodies and in these municipalities, we have a role to get out there and make sure that our elected officials know and understand exactly what we want to or what is expected of them representing us, and we fail at that miserably. A lot of us do.
As a former social studies teacher, current government teacher, I'll go into my classroom. I'll go into Hill in a couple of weeks, and I'll have about 15, 16 students, and I'll ask, "How many of y'all registered to vote?" They're all over 18. I would bet 3 hands go up.
Absolutely.
And it said, you think, how is this really possible? Because they had to get the voter registration when you've got the driver's license, but they don't even know if they're registered or not.
Absolutely.
And those that are registered, I'll ask them how many plan to vote, and half of those will. And it just no wonder we get the politicians we do sometimes. Now, as far as the local politicians, both at the school board level, city council level, I'm relatively pleased with them, because I know they have a really hard job. Victoria's been on there a bunch, and this is kind of a segue to announcement. Next Monday, week for today, Mayor Fletcher will be making a return appearance to the show after.
Good for him.
Yeah. Well. I'm glad. I really am, because the election got a bit contentious, and so we decided to cool off our relation for a little while. But to his credit, he when I ran across him about 5 weeks ago, he was very gracious and cordial and said, we need to make this work again. And there you are.
Good for him.
I give him all the credit.
I think one of the most, and I shouldn't be an elected official. I know that. I know my lane. One of the most difficult things and one of the most cherished role or values that I look for in an elected official is, can they move from one item that doesn't go their way, reset the slate, and then objectively look at the next item on the agenda to vote at and not take it personal when they
Well,
don't get it. And I think
Yeah.
Mayor Fletcher's a good one. I think he's doing solid. I think he's got some tough decisions to make coming up.
Oh yeah,
He
I was
does.
going to bring that up. But
And,
they all do. Victoria and he have both. We've talked about budget issues facing Burleson, and you're probably better aware of them than I am. But I do know what's coming, and I do believe that I pray that, and I believe strongly that the day of really contentious elections are behind us now. We have a very good council. When I last talked to Mr. Fletcher, which was Friday, he was extremely pleased with the way the business was being done by the council. And so even if, every vote isn't unanimous, he was still really happy with how it was going. And that's what we want. That's what we want.
You don't need unanimous. And,
Yeah.
hopefully the citizens of Burleson understand. Burleson has postured itself, especially geographically. It's a bottleneck for a lot of the more rural communities to get up, to the metroplex for work. And so they're servicing, as a thoroughfare, a lot more citizens than what they should be, and their local tax base picks up a lot of the slack to maintain a lot of that stuff. And I know Mayor Fletcher is doing some things with the county to kind of coordinate some things that are really forward thinking.
Yes.
And some of this may not come to fruition for years, but the citizens of Burleson should feel proud that they do have elected officials that are forward thinking, but they are in a bind with some financial issues that are unfortunately, a lot of it's based on geographical and just the bottleneck of the volume of people that come through Burleson every day.
On Wilshire alone.
Absolutely. And that's not a Burleson issue. That's a getting through and in and out of Burleson issue.
Well, the council member know best, obviously, is Victoria. And we talk about this on a pretty routine basis. And they're facing some hard decisions.
Yes, they are.
And I'll let them explain why that is more, but it has a lot to do with appraisals.
Sure.
And, even though they've dropped the percentages significantly, people's tax bills are still going up because of the appraisal district. And you had some information about how this all works.
Sure.
Why don't you show us what you were talking about before the show? Because, this is an example of what you do more than I when I do a national politics show or local, and I do news clips and screenshots, you get into the documents. So which one do you want to show first?
So let's pull up eliminate property tax, Texas horse barn. So this is a great landing spot locally to go to.
This one right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is a great Facebook group to go to where, it's pushing 10,000 members now. It was started locally by a local individual named Craig Hunley, who was tired of seeing people get forced out of his homes, having homes sold over their heads. And so this is a great starting point to go and learn about property taxes and understand the gravity of the problem. And so people need to understand that property taxes, it basically takes about a year to cycle through. So everybody knows about spring when we get our appraisals. So every spring we get our appraisals. And when we get these appraisals, everybody goes, oh my gosh, everything went up. So, but that's really not affecting how much taxes you're going to pay at that point, so to speak. So in the spring you receive your appraisals, and that is based on the market value of your home from January 1st. You have a period of time during this appraisal process to informally request a reevaluation for an adjustment, or you can formally go through your appraisal review board. There's a period of time that they have to make sure everything's adjusted as they see fit, and then on July 25th every year, the certified tax rolls then go to the taxing entities. So your taxing entities are your city councils, your school districts, et cetera. So they're the ones that once they get those certified tax rolls, that is basically their bucket of money that is available to extract their budget from. So a good city council, a good school district is continually refining their budget. So they should be well into the budget process by this 25 July spot. They get preliminary numbers. A responsible taxing entity a responsible taxing entity will begin the budget process looking at the if all of the appraisals were going to be approved. So they're starting at the lowest amount that they're going to have available. And then they do their budgets. So as they do their budgets, then they receive from the comptroller's office or from the tax assessor's office, they receive basically a worksheet, and it's called a notice of public hearing. So if you could pull up the one dated June.
Is that the PDF?
The PDF, yes.
Right. Okay. The one with the multicolored PDF.
So this is probably the most important document that, in my opinion, that a taxing entity is going to use. So this is what's called the Notice of Public Meeting to discuss budget and proposed tax rate. So every taxing entity has to do this every year, and they have to do it in a public hearing. And this is how and what they're going to propose for a budget and a tax rate every year. So once they get the certified rolls, they fine-tune their budget, and this basically gives them a range of where they can set a tax rate. So the good news is they tell you how it compares to last year. So at the top of this in the purple, this is Burleson ISD. Burleson ISD does it early. Some ISDs do it early because they want a larger bucket of money at the start of the school year. So they do it early. So at the start of the school year, they have a more revenue available if they've kind of gone amok. So this shows you whether they're increasing the maintenance and operations, which is your M&O tax rates, your debt services tax rate, and the total expenditures. So this is telling us that Burleson ISD is going to spend. This is what they're proposing. 3.89% of a decrease from the year before. Then you look at the total appraised value and total taxable value. That's in the green here, and it shows the preceding year and the current year. And the most important thing here is the total taxable value. So your total taxable value, everybody gets wrapped up in appraised value, but appraised value, if you're senior citizen, if you're veterans disabled, if you have a homestead exemption, if you have ag exemptions, your appraised value is one number, but the total taxable property value is really important because that's what is actually taxable. Mm-hmm. So if you're a 100% disabled vet, you don't pay taxes. So your appraised value might be $200,000, but your taxable value is zero, right?
Right.
So the total taxable property value is very important because that's what is available for your taxing entities to tax. The next one going down here in the purple is bond indebtedness. And so this shows that Burleson is currently carrying $267 million of debt via bonds. Now, those bonds were approved by taxpayers. That was most likely to build, upgrade schools, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. This doesn't include interest. So that 267 is probably somewhere around mid 400 million. And that is your interest in sinking debt. So this one document is a wealth of information.
Where would one find this document, though? Because I know you could just pick it up, wherever, but and you can go to their offices and get all the documents you want. Any public entity is going to just hand it over to you without question.
Sure.
But where do you find this on the internet?
So once it's proposed and approved, they will go on the taxing entity's website, and that's where they post it on there. Usually it's under some form of a business operations or a financial tab. This has to be posted, I believe, don't hold me to this, but I believe it's 10 days before because it's a public hearing. Right. So this has to get posted before that and made available to the public because they're looking for public input on this. This is a lot more open of a meeting to engage the public so the public can come in and speak on this. But all the taxing entities will post this on their websites, and the county will post these notices too.
You were showing us before the show, if I want to know my information, it's public information. Sure. And so we're going to use mine because I don't want to, use a neighbor's or somebody like that. But I don't know if people really realize just how much information about their property and their taxes and whatever is available for public viewing.
Can I show one more thing on this?
Oh, please.
Before we go. So
you go right ahead.
So when they start talking about tax rates in the yellow part down here at the bottom, the comparison of proposed levy with last year's levy on average residents, they're using generalized numbers to tell you how the proposed tax rates for this upcoming year and are compared to last year's. But the very, very small box that shows yellow and red, this tells you what the notice of voter approval rate is. So the notice of voter approval rate, or the voter approved tax rate, is the absolute highest rate that a taxing entity can assess to voters without calling a voter approval tax rate election, or a VOTRE or a TRE election. So everybody's had a taxing entity at some point or another do an election where they say, we want you to voluntarily raise your taxes. And it's usually for roads, teacher pay, something like that. So this little box here at the bottom is one of the most important boxes, because it tells you, are they taxing you at a lower rate than they can, middle of the road rate they can, or the absolute highest rate they can. And this tells us right here that Burleson ISD for the next year is taxing its taxpayers at the highest rate they legally can without calling an election to increase it.
You may not have been in Burleson last time we had a TRE, which was 2012.
Yeah.
Lost by 8 votes.
Lost by 8 votes.
But it was one of the most, not just contentious, but one of the best participated in elections I remember.
Absolutely.
It was right on the tail end of all the crap we were going through, 09, 10, 11.
Sure. Probably not a good time to try to ask people to spend more taxes, but coming out of 08.
I remember Richard Crummell at the time, who was our superintendent, was showing us what would happen if things didn't occur.
Sure.
For this budget, if it didn't pass, whatnot. And they had like 3 different plans for scaling back services, and Plan 3 was drastic. Now, it turned out, or at least the Burleson area economy turned around, so we came close. We implemented some of Plan 1, but we came close to having to go to Plan 2,
Sure.
but we recovered. And things of that nature. It was a very controversial election. I don't want to get into all that because it really is before your time and it's water under the bridge, but it was contentious.
It's tough. It's tough because everybody wants the best for children. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
I suggest people start with Texas Education Code 4.002. There's only
Try that one again for us.
Texas Education Code 4.002.
Okay.
So what Texas Education Code 4.002 is it's the 4 and only 4 goals of public education. Now, there's a lot more public education does, and there's a lot of great services they can do, but everything begins and ends with this. Those are exemplary performance in the reading and writing of the English language, exemplary performance in mathematics, exemplary performance in science, and exemplary performance in social studies. So those are what the public school absolutely has to do.
Non-negotiables.
Those are the non-negotiables.
Right.
So master those, and if there's more money and the population and the community will accept higher taxes, then let's vote on it and let's let the voters come in. And that's the best thing about our system.
I want to book you for another show. We'll have that debate because
Sure.
I'm not quite where you are on that
respect.
particular issue. And all due respect.
Fair enough. No,
I'm not quite there. Because being a former teacher, I've seen what some of the non-negotiable programs, the benefits they brought to the students.
Sure.
I mean, some tremendous benefits other than the 4 non-negotiables you just mentioned. But let's do that for another show because that's a good way of hooking you in for another appearance. But but I think,
and I think the schools have a lot more purpose. But what I'm saying is, if there's a money issue, that's where you start to make sure that those are solid.
Well, and I agree that it doesn't matter how good your non-negotiables are. If your 4 mandatory things are not performing up to snuff, that's not the debate. It's just I encounter this quite often with people who said, "Gosh, do we really need to have all these programs at Centennial and BISD or the game theory school or whatever?" And I'm saying, this is not the school system I joined in 1990. There's so much more demanded of us, not just as a system, but from the graduates of that system.
Absolutely.
So we'll have that debate. But
the good news is for a lot of those career technical education programs, they get actually 47% more funding for students in some of those lanes. So.
Plus, but some of these other programs, like the early college program, as a Hill College teacher, I can tell you the benefit is tremendous. And the Burleson Opportunity Fund, which is not part of the school system, but it's it's a nonprofit. I could tell you it's benefited Burleson tremendously.
Absolutely.
But anyway,
So let's get to this website.
Yeah,
right?
go to this site
So,
that we can find out what my taxes have been. Okay.
So one of the biggest things with property taxes is it's a very, very complex thing, and
It is.
there's a lot of stuff. So this is a grassroots movement going back to Eliminate Property Taxes, Texas Horse Barn. They spend a lot of time going to the taxing entities, trying to basically get individuals placed on the Central Appraisal District Board of Directors that were going to be more transparent, more accountable, and provide a lot of education to the community on how property taxes worked. It's either being done right, it's being done wrong, it's being done lazy, it's being done great. The question is, there was too many questions that needed to be answered. Chairman Dwayne Golding has done a great job. He's developed a education piece that he's going around to trying to go around to taxing entities present this to. I've videoed him presenting it. He's gone to Johnson County Builders Association. So they're doing a great job, the Central Appraisal District Board of Directors. But this is the Central Appraisal District of Johnson County website. So it's johnsoncad.com, and this is like the stepping off point to go find out about your property. And if you look at the if you look at two things here, one is interactive map where you can search any parcel. We don't need that clicked on, but interactive map, and you can find each individual parcel in Johnson County. And then the other one, if you want to look for your individual property, start with property search, which is on the left side here. So if you click on property search,
Do you want Josh to do that?
no, we'll use your.
It's already set up.
Yours.
Okay,
so we're going to use your property that you own as an example here. So find your property, and this will give you a wealth of information. So if you go to Mr.
You have mine already set up. Is that right, Josh? There it is. There's me, and I don't mind showing it because anybody who is interested enough to do it will find this very information on the website. So
absolutely, and this is a public website. This is not. This is anybody that has internet access can go to this website.
So it's hardly a state secret.
Yeah.
And I've lived here since at this piece of property since 1991, and I could tell you values go up tremendously.
So this is what this looks like, and and basically it talks about there's a lot of coding stuff that's I'm sure I don't have enough education enough to understand it, but
you sound like you know a lot more than most.
The best place to start is to make sure that the information that you know about it is correct. So this says you're on 3/4 of an acre,
right?
It has your address on it. It has a code that's internal to the CAD and how they classify. You can think of Dewey Decimal System for a library. That's basically theirs. It says where it is with geographical stuff, and then over here to the right, the property values. This talks about your improvement home site, your improvement non-home site value, land, home site, and ag. This isn't an ag property, so there's no agricultural.
Could
market.
it be? But put a couple of goats on it.
You need a little more acreage.
That's what I thought. We do have a couple of my neighbors have several acres. They put a couple of head of cattle or a couple of donkeys on it, whatever. And
bees are the hotness now. Yeah, everyone wants to put bees on.
Bees, is that really? Yeah, I guess that would.
Yeah, bees pollinate, right?
Yeah, hey, that's fine. But it's fun to think about it. But I have a couple of goats. I want to mow the yard. But there you go. Whereas the coyotes will probably get them.
So if we could, a great way to look at to see how the Central Appraisal District and how the appraisal process and property taxes has affected your property over time is if you could scroll down to the bottom.
Property roll value history. Is that okay.
So this will go back to 2014. So this is a great way to see how over time your property has appraised. I think that anybody who spends a lot of time on this website looking at a lot of different properties will find a lot of very questionable, concerning things in this area. There's some serious problems with either data entry, skipping over some properties on a very broad scale, but yours here. So for yours, in 2014, the improvements on your house were assessed at $120,000, and in 2024, that's $265,000. So what have you done to your home since 2014?
I put a new roof on in 19.
So
A new air conditioner in that same year.
okay, so your improvements have gone from 120 to 265, and you put a new roof on, probably from hail damage, and a new AC.
Yes.
Fair enough. Your land value, so the value that your home sits on, has gone up from $38,000 to $53,000.
I mean, but go back to the improvements. How would they know that? I didn't call anybody at the county and say, "Hey, I just put a new roof on."
Well, they are supposed to. So they are supposed to equally, fairly, equitably assess and do this to every property. They have and I hope I say this right. It's USAPAP standards. There are guidelines to follow. So they have rules and regulations to follow. What the individual person at the Central Appraisal District who's in charge of your specific property, the process they go to, I cannot answer that question.
Well, here's the thing also I noticed, besides the fact I've gone in the last decade, gone from my improvements went from 120,500 to 2,000 or 265,200. That's significant. A new roof it's not $100,000. I don't care even if Old Pro puts it on twice. You know, so, but also what I've noticed,
maybe they upgraded to shingles.
Yeah, okay. But what I've noticed also is the jump from even 2022, I was 180, and now 2024, I'm at 265. That's a pretty good jump, you know. Yeah.
Well, I can speculate.
Yeah, I know you don't know my specific story, but that's a pretty good jump.
I can tell you that there's a lot of properties that look this way, and 2023 to 2024 is a bigger jump. And what happened at the state legislative level recently with property tax relief?
Right. Is that? I was wondering if that's what triggered that jump when they passed the I don't know, the refund, if you will, and the lower property tax rates. I got a check from my mortgage company and all that business. But you know, on the other side of it, even we were talking about this on the show. I said, I have to think our local taxing entities are going to make up the difference. They're not going to just idly cut their budgets by a third or whatever it was.
So the big change was the residence homestead exemption went from $40,000 to $100,000.
Right.
So that took $60,000 off every piece of property that was valued at over $100,000 out of the taxable property level. Is there a jump because of that? I don't know. I know that a lot of properties show a significant jump that's out of proportion with trends. I can't speak to why that is, if that makes sense.
Well, I just assumed. I tell you the truth. And I know I could go and fight it, but I've heard that the success rate isn't that particularly good.
Well, let me make this really clear. I am not in any way assessing that there's any improper things going on, illegalities. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that if you spend a lot of time in this website and you spend a lot of time going around from certain properties, you're going to find a lot of stuff that don't look right. For example, 2020 to 2022, your property appraised at the exact same dollar amount. So 2020 to 2022 was the middle of COVID.
Right.
How was the housing market during COVID?
Not so good.
Not so good?
I'm sorry. I was thinking of the mortgage. No, it was pretty hot from what I remember.
It was. I moved back to Texas. I used to live in Midlothian.
Did I say not so good? I was thinking of something. Honestly, I was thinking of something else about taxes. But as far as my house,
yes.
Oh yeah, I'd get.
That's when people were paying $100,000 over asking.
Right. I was getting offers well over what I thought my house was worth to move.
Yes.
And I wasn't going to move, but I was getting offers well over. When I said not so good, I was thinking of the tax rate. Okay, so you're getting me confused. But anyway,
it's a complicated.
Yeah, but
thing,
no, but I was getting stuff from Zillow and all these others. Hey, we will buy your house, and you'll get, cash offer $60,000 more than what your house is worth. But I had no intention of moving because if I moved, where would it go? I'd be in the spot of having to overpay and all that. But I'm I'm like you. I'm not as insinuating there's something malfeasance going on or wrong. It
could be a data entry problem. It really could. I mean, this is a website. It could be data entry.
Well,
but now, what I will tell you is there's properties that the improvements and these values have not changed $1 for 10 years, and there's a lot of them. And the question is why? I don't know.
Sometimes I honestly, I was tempted a couple of times if I can get $100,000 more than what my equity is, I might do it. But then, like I said, it isn't like I go to a similar house of quality and make at a bargain. It'd be also overpaying.
Absolutely.
Well, you give us a lot to talk about. We're going to do this again, but in the last few minutes, when we talk about you and your podcast, your plans, what you got going on.
So I had a weekly show, and it was awesome, and I was treated very well where I was at, and I just there was some capabilities that I wanted to expand on. I want to get out and do some remote things. I want to have a really good remote capability. Like, for example, the Central Appraisal District is an open meeting. They don't live stream it. They don't have a capability to capture it.
Really?
Yeah, they're not. It's not required. They probably will at some point because there's been so much interest. So I go to that meeting and I work with the gentleman and we live stream it. So I want to be able to show documents like this. So bonds are one of the big issues. Bonds are misrepresented and the effect on taxpayers a lot. I want to be able to show bond orders and discuss them and talk about them. It's really easy to. It's a lot different when you can see it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So and I wanted a little bit more autonomy and a little bit more control. So I'm in the process of acquiring some equipment and looking for platforms to kind of do my own thing. I want to have a ability. I spend some time in Austin trying to affect legislation. That's mainly on the school side with school legislation and stuff. It will be in the Ways and Means Committee if we can get a property tax bill that's either good or bad, depending on it.
Yeah, I know Dwayne Burns was in favor. I assume Helen Kerwin is also.
Oh, she's okay. Yeah, I think, I don't know very many people that are not understanding the problem. I mean, if it keeps, I think I want to say. I mean, I can't remember the exact number, but so for example, certain like senior citizens, you cannot pay your property taxes. You can defer it. You can do a formal process where you're not paying property taxes and you accrue a bill.
Right.
You accrue a bill and it's a really low interest rate and it's a way to keep you in your home. Right.
Right.
Those are, I want to say, in the 40% of people not paying property taxes. So even for the people that are capable of paying their property taxes, right? If it keeps going the way that it is, their burden's going to increase because so many people are deferring. Senior citizens, they love to say, "Oh, senior citizens, your property taxes are frozen. You're frozen." Well, if you're 85 and when you pass, if you think that you realistically can pass that generational wealth that you've built in your equity in your homes, your children that you leave this property to is going to have a 20-year catch up.
Yeah.
And so there's a
nothing's free, is it?
Nothing's free. And yes, we have to fund local government. Yes, we have to fund school districts. But the reality of it is this problem with being able for people to stay in their homes is significantly getting worse, and it's beginning to snowball and steamroll, and something's going to have to be done in some way. Well, I do know the best way is how do you
right.
Yeah.
As far as your future plans, I do know we talked earlier about some of the ideas you have. Hopefully, you'll find a platform. I know a great platform, actually.
This is a very nice studio.
Yeah,
it's my first time here.
Yeah,
thanks for having me.
No, I want to have you again, certainly. But I think it's important. I know we're just early in the discussion stages, but there's going to be some collaboration going on.
We'll see. Yeah,
and so with a lot of us, and that's going to be good for the county. So, but we're like step 3 of a 1,000-step process. So and you never know. So. But anyway, I do see more collaboration between your show, my show, other shows like it in the future. and that's good for the county. It's
Sure.
good for the people.
Absolutely.
To kind of provide that kind of stream of information that we don't get because we don't have local stations or newspapers anymore.
No, and there's so much muddiness in the flow of information. Having an area that's easy to navigate, to the point, just enough like for an elevator speech type information that gets right to the meat of it. That people don't have to devote a substantial amount of time weeding through a bunch of drama. It's a good thing.
So they don't get all their information from social media or Facebook in particular, or Instagram. But no, that's
guilty as charged. I spend a lot of time.
Well, we all do because that's really about the only option we have.
It's modern day water cooler.
And but anyway, that's still in the what if stage kind of thing. But anyway, I want to have you on again. I will after the show. We'll figure out a good time. I got a couple dates in September left and that kind of thing. By that time, maybe some other steps have been taken. What we're kind of referring to obliquely here, and also, you'll probably be further along with what your plans are. Your situation.
Into September would be a great time because all of the taxing entities at that point should have approved their budgets and tax rates, and we can see where they're all coming in.
I got the 23rd and 24th and the 30th. So after the show, we'll figure out what's good for you. Josh, you did a darn good job pinch hitting. Yes.
Thank you.
It makes me think, Taylor, you better pick up your game, son. Tomorrow, like I mentioned before, the Amanda Mann Clark Project on, we're going to talk about colorectal cancer research, and Hillary Melendez, who is a cancer survivor, will be here and talk about not just the treatments and all the, we all know what cancer treatment is like because we all have loved ones that's gone through it, if not ourselves. But we're going to talk about what they're doing. Colorectal cancer is a more bigger deal than I thought. Get that colonoscopy, guys. It's really kind of funny. You got to check in because they're all nurses, and they talk about the process, let's say, in very frank terms. And it's like, ladies, please, this is a family show. But anyway.
There's been a great awareness brought into breast cancer, and it's really done wonders for diagnosing early. And we need to get on board with prostate, colorectal. That's a little more sensitive part of the body, but we need to get that kind of awareness for that. I agree.
All righty. I appreciate you coming on the show. You really gave us a lot of information. Share this with your friends, gang, because this affects almost every one of us, and it's information we can use, particularly, like you said, the tax season, or like when is the deadline for all this information to be done? Is it already passed?
Are you talking about the deadline? So by the end of September, they have to have their budgets and tax rates approved.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Most of them will do it. Most of them will do it. They'll do a public hearing in late August in case they need to do another one.
Right.
So they want to have a backup, but they're all working on tonight. Godly ISD is doing a budget workshop.
Well, that's what they were doing today at City Council in Burleson.
Yeah. So they're doing them now. They're doing them now, and that's good. And they should have started them a couple months ago.
Well, they have been.
Yeah, and that's great.
I know what Victoria told me is their goal is to have the final vote early September and have it go into effect in the fiscal year, which is October 1st. Yeah. So that way, they're not having to rush at the end.
And that's perfect because if for some reason there's a last minute hiccup, they can call a special meeting with enough time to, because they have to do it in a public hearing. That's just the rules.
Texas has very strict open meeting laws. I found that out when I was working with the TEA. I mean, you can't have a cup of coffee with more than with any of your colleagues and talk about business. I mean, it's that serious. So anyway, I'll see y'all tomorrow at noon. No, it's 11. At next week, I'll start it. I'll give my dates. Next week is when I start my DBU schedule. So tomorrow is 11, and I'm looking forward to it because these kind of shows I like. These kind of shows you like. You like.
This was pretty tame for me.
Yeah.
So
okay. Well, we appreciate your restraint.
No, in a good way. I like the tame ones.
All right.
But thanks for having me.
You
Appreciate
betcha.
it.
I'll talk to you all tomorrow.